Today's learning goal is I can solve inequalities using addition and subtraction. You can solve inequalities in the same way you solve equations. Use inverse operations to get the variable by itself. Okay, we're going to look at the addition property of inequality. When you add the same number to each side of an inequality, the inequality remains true. So in order to solve this inequality right here, they just rewrote it. I'm not going to make you rewrite them. And what did they do? To get the x by itself, they added 4 to both sides. That canceled that out. X was now by itself. Bring down the less than symbol. -1 plus 4 is equal to 3. The only thing that's changed is that we have an inequality symbol as opposed to an equal sign. Now we're going to look at the subtraction property of equality. Okay, when you subtract the same number from each side of an inequality, the inequality remains true. So again, we're going to solve this inequality. So we want to get the y by itself. And I notice now the y is on the right side, and they're adding 16 to it. The opposite of adding 16 is to subtract 16. So they subtracted 16 from both sides of the inequality. These canceled out. Y is by itself, and 12 minus 16 is -4. And I would read my answer from the variable. So I would read this as y is greater than or equal to -4. Okay, now we're going to practice some of these. Let's look at number 1. It says x plus 7 is greater than or equal to 19. So I want to get the x by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides of the inequality. Again, the 7's cancel out, and x is greater than or equal to 19 minus 7 is 12. They could also ask us to graph these. Again, if we were to graph this, it would be a closed circle on the number 12, and since its x is greater than, we would be coloring to the right. Just a little review of graphing as well. Now number 2. Number 2, in order to get the t by itself, we have to undo -5 by adding 5 and adding 5. That cancels out the 5's on the left side. T is less than -7 and +5 give me -2. Be careful. Don't change the inequality symbol to an equal sign. Make sure you keep whatever the symbol is. In this case, it was a less than sign. Hint, if I were to graph this, it would be an open circle on -2, and I would be coloring to the left. Finally, number 3. Notice the z is on the right side. To get the z by itself, we have to undo -3.6. So I'm going to add 3.6, and I'm going to add 3.6. Make sure you line up that decimal point. Again, it's hard writing on this iPad. Mine don't look perfectly lined up. I'm trying to do my best. Okay, z comes down, the symbol comes down, and 1.4 plus 3.6 is 5. And again, I would read this as z is greater than 5. I would always read them from the variable. You can read it 5 is less than z, but I would read it from the variable, because if they asked us to graph it, you always have to read starting at the variable. Now we're going to look at the word problem. The school auditorium seats 350 students. There are 309 students already seated. Write and solve an inequality that represents the additional number of students that can be seated. Okay, so we don't know the additional number of students that can be seated, so I'm going to call them S for students. And I know we already have 309 seated. So plus 309. And I know that the auditorium can hold 350. Okay, now I have to decide what symbol I'm going to put in there. Well, you can't have more than 350 because otherwise there wouldn't be enough seats. So therefore I know that I'm going to have to put a less than symbol here. But it could be equal to 350 because there are 350 seats. So therefore, I'm going to put the less than or equal to 350. Now, most of you would say, oh, I could do this in my head. Yes, you can, but if they want you to write the inequality, you really have to pay attention on how we did this. Next, I want to get the number of students by themselves, so I'm going to subtract 309 and subtract 309. And S is less than or equal to 350 minus 309 is 41. So that tells me that 41 more students could fit in the auditorium or less than that number. So that's why if you just did it in your head and said, well, the answer is 41, well, but the answer is actually less than or equal to 41 because less than 41 students would also fit into the auditorium, up to 41 students. You will do more practice problems like this in Pearson. Good luck.